common myths and misconceptions that you encounter in your daily interactions with patients?
Okay. So firstly, when it comes to, if I have to go in trimester,
Let's take food to begin with.
Okay. Okay.
Now,
So
there is this whole story of, if you take saffron, the child's going to be fairer or something like that, right?
yes. So that is one of the most common myth we have running around in our society. So saffron, yes, it does have some benefits. They say that it contains certain micronutrients. It has some trace amounts of iron in it. So definitely it would be beneficial to a body. However, taken in excess amount would cause certain activity of the womb. So womb starts getting some labor type of pains we call as uterine activity, which can either cause late miscarriages, or it can cause some preterm false labor, preterm pains. So these are certain things saffron can do. So definitely it can be taken like normally 1 or 2 strands in a cup of milk can be acceptable. However, large doses thinking that it's going to change the complexion of the baby, no. Definitely not. It's not having an association with the complexion, and complexion is definitely determined only by the genetics of the genetic makeup of the baby, which comes from either of the couples. Yeah.
What about the food or other kinds of food that you're not supposed to take?
Yes.
What are other
So
myths around
initially,
that?
as soon as a woman gets pregnant, when she comes to us, we tell her, definitely even before we can say, the woman asks us, doctor, what can I eat? What should I not eat? So yes, in that case, very few things which we say not to eat would be papaya. That is raw papaya. More than the ripe one, it is a raw papaya. However, we tell them to avoid the papaya itself, and also pineapple and jackfruit. Why? Because these fruits contain certain enzyme which can increase the uterine activity again. So it can lead to miscarriages or false pains, basically. So this is why we tell them. However, on the contrary, when a woman goes very close to her term, she's about 9 months and she's very close to her due date, we tell her to start eating these fruits, basically the papaya, ripe papaya, sometimes raw made into sabji as well, because we want the labor pains to start when she's close to labor, she's crossing her due date. We tell them to start eating. So that is about the fruits which we tell to avoid. However, there are certain myths, that you should avoid, chicken. Basically, they say it generates excess heat in the body, so to try to avoid chicken. Definitely, everyone knows chicken is very rich in protein. It is one of the white meat rich in protein, and protein is very, very important for a healthy pregnancy to continue, both for the mother and the growing baby as well. So we would tell, for the fact that yes, it may be generating excess heat in the body. How do you compensate that? Drink excess water, more water, so that it can, the tally, whatever heat is generated, it gets tallied by adequate water drinking, and soothes and cools your system. That's it.
No, there's also this whole thing about, I'm sure you come across this thing. If you eat certain kinds of colored food, like the food is dark in color, your baby will turn out to be dark complexion.
It's a very, very funny myth, I should say. Elders, even to this date, in some, even in urban, semi-urban, rural areas as well, we see the elders telling, don't have coffee, don't eat chocolates, don't eat ragi, only because they are dark colored, and, your child will turn out to become dark. Definitely no. We all know that how rich and nutritious ragi is, and, taking a bite of dark chocolate is definitely not going to change the complexion. As I said, it is only the genetic makeup which is going to decide the complexion, nowhere related to eating white stuff or the dark colored stuff. So please go ahead, eat a balanced and healthy nutritious diet. However, now I want to touch upon one more important thing about eating for 2 people. We always see our grandmas telling, you're no more one, you have another life growing inside you, you're 2 people now, so eat double portion of your meal. So keeping weight under control, keeping a check on the weight during pregnancy becomes very crucial, both for the patient, for the woman, and also for the doctor. It is important that, we keep on telling them, if at all, once she comes with certain weight and after 15-20 days, I see she's put on more than 2 kgs, I'm really worried for her. Because, obesity and unwanted weight gain becomes very difficult, because it can invite hypertension, it can invite high blood sugars, and making normal delivery more difficult and challenging for her and for the doctor. So ideal weight gain in pregnancy is not more than 10 to 12 kgs, and eat short, frequent meals. We say at least 5 to 6 meals, which should include a balanced, nutritious diet, a glass of milk, and we say one handful of fruits and nuts. So take one handful of nuts every day, only 200. So that means it is only a slice of a multigrain bread with some amount of peanut butter on it. That is the additional requirement required, not more than that.
What about working out? I mean, people say when you're pregnant, you sit at home, sleep at home, don't get up, don't go out. What are your thoughts on that? What are the myths you encounter?
Yeah, so yes, how much ever we try to educate our senior population, still this challenge has always been there for women, that they, the even the parents want them to stop work, because it's not at all important for the woman to quit working or to reduce her pregnancy is going in a very smooth way. If she's not had any challenges in conceiving or any other physical health concerns, then definitely she needs to be working, because it will keep her healthy. She'll have a very better social interaction with her colleagues, and it can divert her from the symptoms of pregnancy like the nausea, vomiting, indigestion. Keeping her physically active definitely improves her constipation. And so in that way, definitely keeping herself active by going to work, unless and until she requires a strict bed rest. And those are very special conditions where she's had very extremely high blood pressures, or she's had some bleeding signs in pregnancy, or the placenta is very low down and there is a tendency that she will bleed. Only that situations we require her to rest at home. If not, normal working women can continue working till they settle to labor sometimes, if the situation permits.
Myths that you encounter. We seem to have some video problem today. Is it happening everywhere? Are you everyone feeling it, or we are facing some video hiccups? Is it? Hello. We are good. Okay, doc. Any other myths that you encounter normally?
Yeah, one more thing is, again, with in terms of gender, why I'm specifying this so much, because we also have stringent laws in place that gender determination is very, very illegal in our country. However, not allowing a pregnant woman to touch a female baby. Any family, any small kid who is a female in the child is not brought towards the pregnant woman, or not allowed to interact with the pregnant woman, only because they are scared that the baby inside of her would become a girl child, is a big myth, and it has to be broken, because it has a very emotional impact both on the girl child and also on the pregnant woman. And being biased is definitely a big no. So it is not going to determine the gender of the baby. It is predetermined. As soon as the woman conceives, the gender of the baby is fixed.
There's also a story about how we can look at them, know the gender of the child by the bump on the on the mother. Have you ever found anything which is close to being right there?
Though it is not right, it is somehow giving a lot of joy to people. Just look at the bump and say it's a girl, and finally a girl is born. Everybody's like, I knew it was, I saw you, I could tell you this. And however, it happens in our own institutions, in our hospitals, where the nurses try to guess the the baby inside, looking at the bump. I mean, it just gives some kind of kick to the ones who are guessing the names. However, there is no relation to the size of the bump. It only depends on the position of the baby. Sometimes if the baby is lying in a very transverse position, the bump might look a little bigger. Sometimes if the baby is growing very small, the bump might be very small, very invisible types. Or the baby is in a very longitudinal position, then it will take a different curve, however. So that is how it is, but the bump cannot determine the gender at all.
What about the complexion? Sometimes they say mother's glowing, so it's a girl baby, things like that.
Again, Yeah, so what they say, what I've heard is, if there's a boy baby, mother-in-law comes to us and tells us, ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ನಂಗೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಗೊತ್ತು ಅದು ಫುಲ್ಲು ಕಳೆಯಾಗಿದ್ದಾಳೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇದು ಗಂಡ್ ಮಗು ಒಳಗಡೆ. So that means my daughter-in-law is glowing, so that means it is a boy inside. Why? Because they feel the sons give additional beauty to the mother. However, if it is a girl baby inside, she takes away, she extracts all the beauty from the mother. So that's the myths that we have. However, it is again not true. There is no scientific evidence, or there is no studies which says so. It's only the hormones which can make a woman weak, or her eating habits, her lifestyle, her emotional status. That is what is going to add or take away the the beauty or the physical appearance, keeping her smiling or sad at times, not otherwise.
Now, in certain old Hindi movies, like, I'm sure you've seen those. You're the doctor looking at the woman's pulse and saying she's pregnant. Is there a truth behind that?
This is a very, very important question to address. Yes, we have seen in the movies. Only because I am a doctor belonging to modern medicine or the allopathy, I cannot totally deny that it is something very funny and very hilarious to see them holding the pulse. Why I'm saying this? Because yes, in my medicine that I have studied, we don't have anything related to the pulse at all. Your pulse remains 70. If you're not pregnant, your pulse remains the same after, it can just, which is called as Varmakalai. So this man belongs to that family origin who used to do this probably like 100, 200 years ago. And so they have all those he studied that literature and everything. So he tells it, when I spoke to him about this, he does vouch for it, saying that yes, we can determine whether a woman is pregnant or no. Told me that his medicine, he wants to deny whether it is true, it is not true. Then so.
Now, what about the couple's relationships during the pregnancy?
Yeah. So
around that.
I'm sorry.
What are the myths that surround that? What are the misconceptions?
Okay. Most common myths in when it comes to the couples, having sexual intimacy during pregnant times. Usually they tell the first, and thoughts are regarding this. However, I want to say it is a myth. If the woman is having a healthy pregnancy, if she's not had any bleeding episodes in the early pregnancy period, it definitely, it is left to the couple. As long as the woman is physically and emotionally comfortable, they can go ahead and have a healthy physical relationship even till she goes into labor. Even before that, till then, however, very particular situations, like if she's had recurrent vaginal infections, recurrent urinary infections, active infections, some kind of herpes kind of infections in her genital area, if those kind, if not the placenta is very low down, where the chance of having bleeding tendencies, or cases where she's had one or two preterm births, and she's at high risk of having preterm birth, in that case we tell them to strictly avoid having intimacy. So that is the most common that I come across when it comes to the couple.
Does the audience have anything to ask? Anything interesting? I don't think we got anybody interested in pregnancy in the audience, so I don't think our questions out there. Now, what about exercises? Today, people are into exercise, fitness, and stuff like. What happens to that? What happens to your fitness regime? You're pregnant.
Okay. So this is also something very similar to women, whether they can work
Can you
good
hear me, madam?
work or not. Yeah. Yes. Audible? Hello? Here?
Yeah, go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, how's it now in pregnancy? Because keeping her blood pressure under control, keeping her emotional status under control, and also keeping the weight check under control, these become very crucial for us. So, and also certain small symptoms like indigestion, bloatedness. So, all these are also combated well when they are having a good amount of exercise. Um, we say we cannot define it. However, it should be something where she can do her aerobic, she can do her jog very minimal, moderate pace. Basically, she should not be gasping a lot, and also avoid exercises which can be injurious to you, where you can have a fall or hit your bum somewhere or cause some injuries to your joints. So avoiding such kind of strong exercises. She can lift weights as well, minimal amount. If she's lifting some 5 kgs, we would say to lift some 2 kgs. So otherwise, I think aerobics, walking, and immediately after a meal, do not rest, do not sit, at least have a 10-15 minutes of slow walk. That will help keeping your digestion well. So otherwise, going to the gym and walking and jogging is all okay.
Don't even come into the basic points. There's a lot of pressure, even among the educated lot, for the woman to conceive in the first year of marriage. So, what are your thoughts on that? Because that's really affecting a lot of youngsters.
Yes. So now the question which comes here is when to conceive after being married, because the family starts telling, now that you're married, don't give too much gap, then you may not conceive in future. So this is a very strong misconception running in many families. Now, a few things which determines about a woman's conception. One thing very important would be her age factor. um, why? Because the quality of her eggs go down once she touches 30, and much significantly they go down once she crosses 35. Yeah. So one is her age. Apart from that, if she's had any other health conditions like hypothyroidism, polycystic ovaries, any other health conditions, medical illnesses if she's had, so those are going to determine her conception fertility levels. However, giving a 6 months 1 year gap and enjoying life like how many couples and youngsters nowadays want should not be a problem, and definitely it's not going to harm her fertility in any way. Only thing I would like to educate the elders at this stage, saying that we need to give the couple the choice to make their decisions, whether they are mentally, physically, financially, in every way prepared to invite a third person into their into the family. And yes, 6 months 1 year should be a safe target. However, if all the other factors, like I said, her age, if she is just 27, 24, then yes, she can safely give herself 1 year of fun life. However, if she's already touched 33, 34, then we would encourage her to go ahead and plan a baby, because the more she delays, the quality of her eggs would be going down.
Look, there are cases where a pregnant woman, eats raw rice, or there are cases where they also eat, hair. Now, what's the story behind that? Why do they feel like doing that?
Yeah. Now, these are very extreme cases that we rarely get to see. However, they develop a craving. So cravings we've seen here and there, that they want to eat mango, they like eating pickles. So these are something which is just, it is definitely not because of the pregnancy that they're having this craving for the sour food. However, it's just their body, one-to-one makeup it is. But having extreme cravings like eating something which is not to be eaten, like raw rice, and some people eat brick, mud, and hair. Now, these are definitely not the cravings of pregnancy. It's only a myth, and definitely it needs to be checked. It is sometimes happens, not sometimes, it is only because of some micronutritional deficiencies of the body. They say sometimes zinc deficiency causes this craving, iron deficiency causes this craving. So anything which is not to be eaten, a woman starts eating, kindly come back. You need to be evaluated and seen whether there is some nutritional imbalance that needs to be corrected.
Now, how much are people willing to know about pregnancy when you meet people? How much are they willing to know about things? Is there a
Uh,
curiosity among people? People are getting married or want to get married or want to be parents?
Sadly, no. Sadly, not at all. They say, like, if say, for example, I see 100 women today who come with a pregnancy test positive, out of 100, I would have hardly seen maybe 5 to 6 would have come for a preconception checkup or something, who would have just come to ask, what are the do's and don'ts? We are planning to have a baby. Now, doctor, what do you think we should be doing? She's working in night shifts. Do you think she has to change her shift calls? Or, certain curiosities which stays in the couple. Now, this another thing is there is Google everywhere, which is giving us a lot of free information. All might not be directed in the right way. However, we are very happy to invite questions, answer the couple. But yes, the awareness is very little. Not even many know that they have to come for a preconception visit. So the awareness has to improve. We would like to, meet every couple, especially because you want to know your doctor, you want to know your body, you want to know what you have to do. But yes, it is very less in our population. At least in the Asian countries, it is less.
But why do you think it is so? And won't the parent automatically be worried about what's going to happen to him or to her?
Yes. Why? Because pregnancy is definitely a physiological process. It is not a disease per se. Nobody considers pregnancy as a disease, and we have so many women in our families who already delivered, who have experienced what being pregnant means, having a baby means. So there are so many giving their own thoughts and their ideas and information to the woman. Even the parents and the elders say that it is a normal physiology. There is nothing that a doctor has to learn. Sometimes the doctor that you go meet might not even be married, or she might not even have a baby. So they might feel like, what is the doctor going to tell you? They only, there are some, again, a very big problem is, only if a gray haired gynecologist is sitting in the clinic, they feel she's a well experienced doctor to be seen. So these challenges we doctors even face. That is why, because definitely pregnancy is a physiology by itself. Now adding having additional pregnancy induced hypertension, pregnancy induced diabetes, pregnancy related hypothyroidism, so all these are only pregnancy related. So women are not much aware that these things can happen to them. That, as I said, it's the awareness which is low, that newer kind of problems, newer kind of disorders which are coming into play. So yeah, it is the awareness which is less. And still we are in those ancient days where the dais do conduct delivery. So it's like, when a dai could conduct a delivery, why not? What is the great need of having some kind of a guidance for all this? That is the thought in the minds of people.
So why should there be a guidance? Okay, coming back to that, why should there be a guidance?
So as I said, this is what it is. So because no more are we in joint families, no more we have the right guidance and the required guidance from our elders, and the newer generation, we tend to decide things for ourselves, which might be very minimal, and sometimes we do not know to what extreme our decisions can take us. And there are some, as I said, there are some newer kind of problems, like say, for as I said, if she might have had some problem with fits, and she might be planning a baby, she might not know what are the consequences of conceiving when she's having some kind of underlying problem. Or she might have had a cardiac surgery during her childhood days for any reason. Yeah. Or she might have had polycystic ovaries, she might have irregular cycles, so she wouldn't know how this is going to impact her pregnancy. So those were the days where we had less of medicine, less of investigations. We never had much of our hands on all these newer technologies and information that is available now. Yeah.
So, tell me, in the last 5 or 10 years, what is the difference you see in the patients who are coming to you? I won't say patients, I would say pregnant women coming to you. What's the difference?
Right. This might not be the most apt question to me, because I'm in practice only for the past 8 to 10 years. Yeah. So if I have to, if I have to gain this from my seniors, like my professors under whom we worked or we were trained, if we have to collate all their experiences and tell you, thing is, yeah, first, there is not much of a difference. Only thing is, the mindset of people has changed. Like, in fact, I should say that they are more welcoming to the kind of, the diagnosis that we are doing. They're in a better mindset to understand what we are trying to tell, and also they try to back it up with the free net, and they're able to make wiser decisions. Now we would have seen that vaginal deliveries, there is always a debate that vaginal delivery cesarean rates have gone high. Yes, this has happened in the past 15-20 years. The cesarean rates have definitely gone high, but there are reasons to it. It's like the active women have gone down. You know, it is more of sitting on the chairs, less of activity, more of the mechanical lives have reduced. You know, it's more of a machinery life that we are dealing. You know, we no more sit on the floor and grind masalas, or we don't sit on the floor and either sweep or mop or wash clothes. Everything, we have a machine which is doing our job, so the pelvic activity is less, the ligaments are not stretching much. All right, so when we are telling this to our patients, now they are in a better mindset to understand. So we are seeing that when we are giving them the education, they're able to absorb the information and, you know, understand it better, which was which was not there in the past 15-20 years ago, where we had less of scannings. We had, people doing more of their routine work, not much of computer jobs and not much of sedentary lifestyles.
What are the three main tips you have for a person who just got pregnant, who just realized she's pregnant? What would you advise?
Okay, so the first tip would be focus on yourself. First thing would be, do not be dependent on anybody to be happy in pregnancy. Because, you know, as soon as you're pregnant, you would definitely expect that the world should start looking at you in a different way. You know, they should give special attention to you. Yes, you would be receiving all the attention. However, if it isn't happening, she should not, you know, go into the extremes of crying or being depressed. Because as I said, nuclear families and very monotonous lives and everybody being to themselves, it may not happen like the olden days. So try to learn to be self-centered and try to focus more on yourself. Take care of the life that is growing within you. Stay positive. That is one thing in terms of her lifestyle. And another tip would be, when it comes to visits and checkup, be your own decision maker. Definitely the family, the in-laws, the parents are going to influence you in many ways about making decisions. Why I'm telling this, because there was one extreme case that I had very recently, maybe like 7-8 months back. There was a family who came to us for a normal her labor and delivery. There was a stage where after trying for 1.5 days, we were not able to deliver her vaginally, and the baby's heartbeat started dropping, only because she's been in labor, but the baby is not coming through and the heartbeat starts going down. So when we told her that she needs to have a cesarean, all that she did was look at the in-laws. And what the father-in-law uttered was quite stunning. He said, it is okay if the baby dies. She can conceive and have another baby, but I don't want her to have a cut on her tummy. And they told also, and they also told this to the woman's parents: if she has a cesarean, don't step back into our house. You can take your daughter and the baby to your house. They told these words and they just went away. And so the woman and her parents, all of them are in a fix. And, you know, our hands are tied as well, because it is very important to have the consent of the woman for us to go ahead and do anything that is going to help her and the baby. So definitely I would tell, please learn to make decisions for yourself. Involve your elders, but definitely keep the decisions, because the life is inside you. That is one big, message I want to give to the women and their husbands.
That's interesting. Thanks, Doc. Well, Doc, do you have anything else to say, since we are running close to finishing time? Any of the interesting cases that you have come across, anything that will add value to people understanding?
Instead of telling about case study, I would like to just mention about the mental health, which is mostly ignored by our Indian women. Mental health. They feel it's okay to cry. It's okay to have some kind of anxiety. It's okay. They feel it is a woman thing to just cry and be depressed, take some antidepressant medications, and it's okay. Life just goes on. That is one parameter, like the mental illnesses, which is definitely to be addressed in pregnancy, because it can take a very bad shape in pregnancy, where it can go up to having suicidal tendencies, not because she wants to, but that is how the hormones will change inside of her. So suicidal tendencies and after birth, harming the baby, it can really take her to that extreme. So open up and talk to us about any kind of mental illnesses that you've had in the past or currently going through. There is help available. Now, having said that, another important thing is about the habits. We do have women in our society nowadays who have habits like smoking, drinking alcohol. It is okay to have the habit, but it is not okay to hide that habit from us, because they have a very harmful effect on your growing baby. And also many do not know that there is help available in terms of alternate ways to tackle this problem. Say women who smoke, we can change them if at all. Definitely the best thing would be to give up on smoking, give up on alcohol. However, in cases in women who've been addicts and not able to come out of this and they are already pregnant, we want to help them. The problem is nobody asks us for help. At least just open up to us. There is help in terms of nicotine patches, wonderful psychologists, counselors. As a teamwork, we always work as a team. There are teams always there to help you in every way possible to make this journey a pleasant one for you. So yeah, this is what is more important, which I want to highlight on, which we usually don't in our country.
Thanks, Doc. Anything else you want to add, or we can close it as of
Yeah,
now?
these are the ones. Yeah.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks a lot. And whoever is on the audience, I'm sure it was a damn good talk. Let me tell you this. I learned a lot of things. And
Thank you very much.
so seriously, it was really, really interesting.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Doc. We should continue with what is the best way to create awareness?
Yeah, so best ways, one way is what we are already doing. It is these webinars. One could be live health camps where we could go. Definitely, it's not only the software, the crowd that we target. We have to go to schools where we can address the teachers, and we can go to every other place where we have a good number of women employees there. We can go and do some camps to them, give them health education and awareness on these things, so that and more than that, it is exchange of information from them to their people around them. So that is the way we can spread awareness. Yeah, in a small way. Apart from that, it could be like we always have the internet and the television, which can bring in the awareness as well.
What is the biggest problem? Because people do not want to understand pregnancy, both the men and the women. Why is it so? Is there a story behind that people don't want to be curious about it, don't want to understand more? Or is it not sensational enough for people to want to know?
Okay. From the husband's point of view, it could only be that anyways, it's her. It's inside her. My job is done. Now she has to carry the pregnancy. I've made her pregnant. My work is done. It's her duty to carry on the pregnancy, have a safe delivery, and give the baby back into my hands. That is what, I wouldn't say majority of men, definitely half the men, they involve actively in taking care of the women and doing things. So other half are the ones who feel, they're nowhere involved in doing this, only for the simple fact that I don't know. It's just that I don't know. Why don't you want to know? There is no answer to it because they don't open up and tell us. That is one thing. So that is the men one side. However, for women, sometimes, it's just the ignorance, I must say. I don't think there is any particular reason why they don't want to know. They don't even know such things exist. So once it is told and give them adequate time, I think definitely our women do understand. They are much interested in knowing what's going on inside them. Only thing is, it should be given to them in the right way. Otherwise, I think they're not that barrier needs to be broken in that way only.
So what's the right way?
So break all the medical terms, give it to them in a very layman's language, like how you would tell a story, how the media reaches, like how the television, how the movie reaches to the people, right? So we need to talk less of it in a medical way. We need to talk to them in a very, very layman's language and make them understand as to why this is important, how it is going to affect them and their future. Not only about the pregnancy, even about their other health, like the menstrual health, menopause, and all the other women related issues. This how, and more than that, they feel it is, and also it's the fact that they feel it's okay to live that way. They've been told this how a woman is. We went through, you also can go through. And they've seen their elders go through it, and the outcome has not been that bad. So it's okay for us to go through the same way. right? So that is the mentality of our women. So we just have to tell them, as I said, we just have to open up and tell them there is help available, come to us.
But doctor, I mean, sure, there are a lot of women out there who get very, very scared and anxious once they realize they are pregnant. So what do they do? I'm sure
Okay.
this scare actually takes them to not talk to you, not meet you. And what about the women who get pregnant who are not married as per the social norms?
This kind of fear I've seen only in very few women. However, they belong to the less than 22, less than 23 kind of age group, right? Which is the college going, just budding kind of years, just out of their teens. Those are the kind of sensitive age which is usually affected more by this pregnancy. Yeah, as I said, they're not mentally prepared, and they wouldn't have just had their normal family life. They wouldn't have even understood their husband well. Certain communities are there where they have to conceive within the first and second menstrual cycle itself. If not, they have already started, they start getting blamed, saying that they're not able to have a baby. So handling the family pressures both from the parents and in-laws, and it is their innocence, I should say. It's their innocence which and the fear is nothing but it is because it's not told to them in the right way. Say for example, a woman comes to us in labor pains, and she wouldn't let me do anything, she wouldn't let me touch her. So I was like, have your has nobody told you what a labor pain would be like? She's unbooked in the sense she's coming for the first time to me in her labor. I've not seen her before in pregnancy, first time in labor. So she says, no, nobody has spoken to me. So it could be either because of nuclear families, or is it there is a barrier now because of the generation gap. The elders have stopped opening up to the younger generation and telling them, maybe because the younger generation doesn't want to absorb the information also. So the knowledge has to be transferred in the right way, in a delicate way, and in a more understandable way, and remove the fear. Once I talk to as soon as she walks into my room, she will refuse to cooperate for a internal examination. However, once I talk to her for 2 to 3 minutes, I would not make my nurse hold her legs and make her pull. Definitely no. I'll just tell sisters, please stay away. Let me talk to her. I just talk to her for 2 minutes, and the third minute she's ready to cooperate for a test, for an internal check. So I feel the fear is there. It is just the way we talk to them to make them overcome the fear. Fear is there even for the boldest, even who looks appears to be very brave. They have the fear in them. It's all about how we try to alleviate those kind of fears.
Okay, what's the biggest fear or misconception of how to talk to the doctor, whom to go and see? How do you decide your gynecologist or whatever?
It's a
How do you
very
decide?
okay. So, firstly, many women choose their doctors depending on the language. Firstly, especially if I have to say place like Bangalore, where you have multilingual people, they Kannada might choose a Kannada doctor. Not always, but yes, usually there is some kind of a you see that kind of an attraction to your own native language speakers. That is one. However, apart keeping all that aside, choose a doctor whom you feel you're really comfortable to talk. The doctor should always look very welcoming. There should not be a barrier. You look at a doctor, you should not feel, is it okay if I ask this question? Will the doctor think something? Definitely no. If you have that second thought in your mind, and if you've not opened up to her, either you need to see if you feel the problem is with the doctor and you're so scared, and the entire pregnancy you're not going to open up to her, then she might not be the right doctor for you. So she should be more, choose a doctor where you feel you're more able to open to her, and available to you, and breaks those barriers and gives you that comfort of both to the husband and to the wife, both of them basically.
No, one last question before we close the session. Today, in the age of promiscuity, okay, and people living together or whatever, I'm sure there's an increase in unwanted pregnancies. What are the misconceptions in that age group, in that kind of situation?
Misconceptions. Okay. More than misconceptions, I would say, yeah. One thing is they feel it is okay to just come, have a abortion, go away, again come after 3 to 6 months, have another abortion. frequently. The time gap would be too short. The thing is, we try each time somebody comes to us. The first visit is only when they have turned out to become positive in pregnancy. Before that, we don't get to know, we don't get to meet them or see them. So when they come to us, definitely we educate them about using safe sex, which is using an ideal contraception, both also to avoid unwanted pregnancies and also to keep any kind of a sexually transmitted diseases. There are certain diseases, and also if there's a live-in relation or a multiple sexual partner kind of scenario, you need to protect yourself. You do not know about the other person if you've not known much about the other person. So we would say, for every good reason, use a safe contraception, which is both either the pills and definitely using a barrier contraception. However, when they come to us, they feel it is okay to have frequent abortions. Just come, it's just a one day off event, just come take a gob of a pill and just go, it's done. And they feel it's not going to impact their pregnancy in future. Definitely no, that is a myth. If you've had a frequent miscarriage, abortions, where you've aborted the babies and you've had certain DNCs happening, where that is going inside the womb and cleaning the womb and removing the pregnancy, if that has happened to a woman a couple of times or more than that, what happens, the scar, like wherever we get a cut, there's a scar that forms. So inside the womb as well, there are scars which start forming, which may in future, when you're actually planning a baby, it may not let a pregnancy to implant properly in the position. It might start leading to miscarriages, and women come with guilt and regrets of what they've done in the past. So it is a myth that it is okay to have abortions. Definitely no. All I would say is safe and the best contraception. Talk to your doctor, use the contraception well, and don't hesitate to come to a doctor for a contraception when you're not married. That is another, zone where they have to reach back to us.
Thank you, doctor. That was wonderful. And thank you very much for sharing what we did. I'm sure, I wish there were more people to actually enjoy, to learn from what you said. But we'll definitely make the videos out of this and, share it across. And do you find it the questions okay?
Yeah. These are the questions which we are addressing in our day-to-day OPD practices. These are the very common ones, and there are no extremes of questions. Now every question has become a common question. Once upon a time, it would have been a very uncommon question to ask, like about multiple sexual partners. Nowadays, it is not. It has again become a common question. So it was a very open platform for me to address on this. I'm happy I got a platform where I could, talk about this to people. Usually, I do it in a one-on-one basis. I've done it to mass people here, and I hope it reaches to the right crowd.
It will. We'll see to it reaches the right crowd. Thanks, Doc. Have a lovely evening. And
my pleasure. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.